Welcome to This Daring Adventure podcast, where we work on bridging the gap between where we are and where we want to be in order to live a bigger and bolder life. In this podcast, we will provide inspiration, tips, and skills you need to make your life the adventure you want it to be. Here's your host, mindset mentor, and life coach, Trista Gurton.
Hey everybody, welcome back to This Daring Adventure. So this week and for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do a little mini-series. It's going to be a 3-part mini-series. So the first part will be today, and then I'll release another one next week and the week after that. And it's all about reinvention. And so I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into this today because I know that a lot of you are here because you're feeling stuck. We're in midlife. We're looking around. We know we're meant for more. We know we're capable of more. But what does that look like, and what does that entail? And so this first part today is going to be not about productivity, not about motivation, not about trying harder, not about blowing up your life. Doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow. It doesn't mean leaving your marriage. Doesn't mean moving to Bali. It doesn't even mean making a big decision now. You can do all those things, but that's not required. What we're going to look at is becoming the next version of yourself on purpose. And it means evolving beyond the identity you've been living from consciously, unconsciously, over the past decades. Because here's what happens to us when we find ourselves in midlife. We wake up one day and realize that life is okay, right? You really probably don't have a whole lot to complain about. You might have some, but overall it's okay. But it's not lighting you up. And you're a little frustrated. Maybe you feel like you're treading water. The confidence is low. You feel like there's more out there for you. You know you're capable of more, but sometimes we just don't know what that is. And even if we do, how do you even go about getting it? And so while you may not be in crisis and things may not be falling apart, something feels off. And there's a voice, quiet voice that says there's more. There's another level. There's a bigger version of me in there trying to emerge. And oftentimes what happens is we've not listened to that voice for many years. If you have been busy building your career, raising children, married, keeping a home, doing all the things, whatever it is, you may have been putting everybody else first, people pleasing, perfectionism, just really busy. And so it's probably been somewhat easier for you to discount that voice, bury it, numb it, buffer it, just not listen to it. But maybe now things have started to change. Maybe you found yourself divorced. Maybe things are not the same in your marriage. Maybe the kids have left home. Maybe the career is sort of, maybe you're retired. Maybe you're looking for a change. So that voice maybe has become a little bit louder. There's a little bit more space for it. And instead of listening to that voice, I hear women telling themselves that they should be more grateful, that they shouldn't be dramatic, that they are just lazy, they're confused, they need clarity, they'll think about it later. It's probably too late. And then they buffer. And when we're buffering or numbing ourselves, we're doing something to excess. It has a net negative effect. So you're scrolling on social media for hours. You're overworking, you're overfunctioning, you're drinking the wine, you're overeating, you're overthinking, you're staying busy, and you wait. And this is not because you're incapable. but because you're uncomfortable. And that discomfort is that nudge, that expansion trying to happen. And we're just bearing it down deeper and deeper. And so I wanted to talk about that moment where you realize that you don't want to keep living like this. You're reaching greater levels of frustration. You know you're meant for more. You know that you are capable. And you want to make changes, not because anything is really terrible, but because it's too small for who you want to become. And that's okay. So, over the next few episodes, we're going to talk about why you're not actually stuck, why discipline is not your problem, what you're really looking for, and how awareness is that first step to reinvention. Because you cannot reinvent and make the changes and go to that next level from autopilot. You cannot build your next chapter while avoiding the truth of your current one. Awareness is always the first place we want to start. You cannot create a bigger life with buffering and numbing all of your feelings that are pushing you to grow and pushing you to expand. You've done that for decades. You've had your reasons. Now is the time to do things differently. So here's what you'll walk away with from this series. You're going to have some clarity about what's actually keeping you stuck. You'll have awareness of your coping patterns. You will have permission to want more and a framework for stepping into the next version of yourself without blowing up your life. And this is not about fixing you. It's about seeing yourself clearly enough to evolve. Reinvention doesn't have to be dramatic, but it is deliberate. It's intentional. It's not a one and done process. It's not one dramatic decision. But we're going to start here with awareness. So let's begin. So, what if you're not stuck? What if you're buffering and numbing, pushing down all the emotions and that voice inside of you? What if there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, but you've just been solving the wrong problem? Because I see so many women thinking, if I could just try harder, be braver, get clearer, stop procrastinating, then my life would change. And yes, but what if the issue isn't discipline? What if the issue is awareness? So we all have that voice in our heads saying, you're behind, you should be further along, you're wasting time, you don't follow through, other women are braver, there might be something wrong with you. Does that sound familiar? For years, we've thought our problem is character, that there's something wrong with us, inherently wrong. We're just not capable. And I will tell you, when I first discovered this wasn't true, is when I started coaching. And the coaching program that I belonged to and that gave me, or where I certified as a coach, I was a part of a number of group coaching calls. So women, I was listening to women getting coached. I was getting coached. I was coaching women, all the things. And one of the things I noticed that kept coming up was the idea that quite frequently the woman who was getting coached thought there was something wrong with her. And it didn't really matter what the issue was. But somehow there was something wrong with her, or she was doing it wrong. especially when it came to kids or her marriage or the job or her weight or whatever it was that she was trying to create. And I remember that moment thinking, "Gosh, we can't all be wrong. You cannot tell me every single woman on this planet is somehow doing it wrong or that there's something wrong with her." And the more I learned about how our brain functions and the difference between the primitive brain and the prefrontal cortex, and it's a very simplistic understanding, but my understanding is yes, there, okay, so that it has to do with our brain and the way it functions and the way we've been programmed and our experiences. And it's never down to just one thing, but our brain does function a certain way. If you live in the West, you have been exposed to a number of messaging and programming as it relates to women. And then you have your own personal experiences. So there's this whole sort of soup or stew that drives what's going on and how we show up. So the good news is that you can change that. And we know that our brain has the ability to form new neurons, and there is neuroplasticity, and we can rewire and learn and change our thinking patterns and our beliefs. And so it takes work and it takes effort, but it is possible. And so the whole point is here we are looking in where we start is with awareness. But it's not your character. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not doing anything wrong. And most of the time, what we find is that it's the way that we have been coping and the way that we have been pushing down and disregarding that nudge, that voice in our head, that desire to grow and to expand and to create. One of their human needs is to grow and expand and go to that next level and be creative and create things and learn. And it's normal for all of us, as I said earlier, to get really busy with life. But now what you see is women reaching a point where that things have quieted down, things have shifted, things have changed. Priorities are no longer the same. There isn't that demand on our time and our energy, and that voice is still there. It's never going to go away. So, what happens is women try to fix their lives the way they try to fix their weight. Right? There's a new job, there's a new routine, there's a new productivity plan, there's a new journal, there's a new morning ritual. I've done all of these things and it works for about a minute. And then life happens and fear shows up and rejection shows up and loneliness shows up and uncertainty shows up and your brain starts spinning. And then what happens? You go back to the scrolling, you go back to the wine, you go back to the chips, you go back to the overthinking, the researching instead of deciding, and the staying still. Not because you're lazy, but because it's less risky, it's easier in some ways. In a lot of ways, it's not. But there is comfort in continuing to do what you've always done. For sure. For sure. Your brain is all for that. So let's do a little bit of a deeper dive into buffering. Buffering or numbing is a behavior you use to avoid feeling uncomfortable. And you do something to excess. It has a net negative effect. So the scrolling, the overworking, the overfunctioning, the overworking out, the staying busy, the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the inability to set boundaries, the waiting for clarity, the procrastinating, the saying, I just need more time, not making decisions, not acting, not feeling your feelings. But it's not the problem. It's just a solution that your brain found. That's why everybody has a little bit of a different one, but it's basically the same thing. And so what we actually want, right? Just like emotional eating isn't about the food, feeling stuck isn't about discipline or motivation, right? We want expansion. We want meaning. We want recognition. We want aliveness. We want reinvention. We want permission. We want to create. But instead of addressing that, try to fix productivity. We try to fix time management. We try to fix our weight. We try to fix our motivation. We try to fix our discipline. But the problem is misdiagnosed, so it's very difficult to fix. And this is where the awareness shift comes in. Before you undertake any sort of reinvention, before you make any changes, you need to see it clearly. You want to ask yourself, what are you avoiding feeling? What are you afraid would happen if you actually changed? What would you have to admit? What do you really want? And this is not about judgment. This is about getting curious, getting still, listening, and understanding. And awareness is the first step, and it is power. And if we don't have that, reinvention will fail. Because you will change jobs, you will leave marriages, you will start businesses, you will move cities, and still feel stuck. There'll be that initial period where it's a novelty and it's exciting, but then that becomes more familiar and less exciting, and you still have your same brain, you still have the same thought patterns, you still have your same coping mechanisms, and you feel stuck again because you took your unmanaged mind with you. So, you don't need a new life. You can have a new life, absolutely. But where you want to start is a new relationship with yourself. So, your assignment for this week, when you start scrolling, take a pause. When you pour the wine, pause. When you say, I don't know, pause. Ask yourself, am I actually confused or am I uncomfortable? Am I actually stuck or am I scared? And most important, what do I really want? Remember, you're not broken. You are numbing and buffering. And there's nothing that has gone wrong. But awareness is where we want to start. This is where your reinvention will begin. Getting clear about what's going on, what you're feeling, and what you're avoiding. If you want help identifying exactly where you're buffering and what's underneath, you can book a clarity audit. For $29, you answer a few questions, and I will create a personalized video for you from what I see and what I understand from your answers. It's not about fixing everything, but we can identify a stuck pattern, and I will give you some action steps that will help to move you forward. And you will have that awareness and that understanding of what's actually driving how you're feeling and what's going on for you. And that changes everything. All right. So this is our first installment of the Reinvention series. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to talk about one-to-one coaching and how it can help to move you forward and change your life, I guarantee you it will change. There's no better way to get some perspective gain that awareness, and learn the tools and skills that will help you to make the changes that you want to make in your life. I will put the link to my calendar in the show notes if you want to book a consultation. Let's talk. Tell me what's going on, and I will tell you how I can help. So tune in next week for the second installment of this Reinvention series, and I will talk to you then. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.